Well, the current crisis, as we all know by now, began with mortgages, and the impact has been to bring the home building industry to a near halt. Well, now that this version of the bailout failed, what will it mean for homeowners, home builders, and the rest of the real estate business? Let's ask Joe Farrell, Farrell Building Company CEO, and R. Donahue Peebles, or Don, Chairman and CEO of the Peebles Corporation, a real estate firm, and the author of The Peebles Path to Real Estate Wealth. He is joining us from Miami. And Dani Babb, she is joining us from Irvine, California, here to weigh in. She is a real estate analyst par excellence. Thanks to all of you. Let's go to Don first. Don, what do you make of the failure of this? Yes, we'll call it the bailout bill today. And what impact do you worry it'll have on your business?
Well, you know, I look at this as a stability bill. I think the government has an obligation to step in and stabilize the financial markets, and that's what's happening. And ultimately, they're going to get something passed. Congress, within the next week, will get something passed that will be acceptable to the remaining 13 Congress people that need to vote for this. But what's happened here is just a greater tightening of credit for our industry, and it has put the real estate market on hold completely. From a consumer perspective in terms of buying houses, from a development perspective, and from an investor perspective, and that, of course, is depressing values even more. But that, I believe, is a great opportunity for those of us who are in the business to stay, and I think a great opportunity for consumers, especially first-time home buyers. All right, but Joe, you know, the Manhattan real estate market has held up amazingly well through all the crisis that the rest of the country has had. Is this different, though? Is what we've seen the past couple of weeks putting a little bit of the fear in you?
There's no question about that, and it's put the fear in our buyers. My market, which is in the Hamptons, is very much like the Manhattan market, very high end. Thank God for the weak dollar. It's really been holding us up. The Europeans have been buying stuff. Our demand is way down, but fortunately, we don't have a lot of supply in the high end. In the last few years, there's been just so much buying that we don't have a lot of supply. So there is a tremendous amount of fear, and people just don't have the confidence to pull the trigger on $8, $10, $12, $15 million properties. And the ones that are out there, their bids are low.
Dani, I know you're not a fan of the bailout bill that was not passed by the House today, but do you worry that with the stress that you see in the housing market and even in the stock market, that people completely get turned off from housing for a very long period of time, and it hurts it even more since prices down even more?
Yeah, absolutely, Dagan. You know, my students have asked me two questions today. First of all, do I have to pay my mortgage if my bank goes under? And second of all, how do I get a loan? And so I called 9 banks that I'm currently doing business with, and I asked them, where's my loan? Am I on hold? Am I still in the process? 7 of the 9 said, we're not touching anything, we're not appraising anything, we're not doing anything, we are not moving forward until we know what's going to happen. Only 2 of the 9 are actually continuing forward with business. So yeah, I am actually quite concerned about that.
Don, have you seen a freeze up like that?
Yeah, you know what, this, by the way, reminds me of the early 1990s when we went through the last housing boom that ended in 1989. Similar tightening of credit. But, you know, actually, I'm out in the marketplace where borrowing is much more difficult to borrow. Credit's tightening and underwriting standards have changed quite a bit. So we're seeing a bit more tightening up, but I think there's still a sense of optimism. I was talking to a major banker this afternoon about closing a financing package on one of our deals, and they're very optimistic that this stability plan is going to get through the Congress and start freeing up liquidity.
But if again, it doesn't, would they still be optimistic that there will be some liquidity there?
I think there will be to good projects, good borrowers. I think you're going to see the housing market, you know, still there's FHA out here to make loans. We still have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And so values are going to be down, but it's a great time to buy. Think about the people who bought in 1992, 1993, 1994. Guarantee you, without exception, anybody who bought during that time period, their property is still, even at these depressed prices, worth more than what they paid for it.
And speaking of the FHA, October 1, you have that new FHA. It'll basically refinance and insure $300 billion in mortgages. But you have to be worried with what's going on here, because I've heard from retailers around the city, other luxury goods companies, that literally business just dried up overnight.
Oh, there's no question. And so many less buyers in the market with Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns. And a lot of these guys are putting their houses on the market. So the inventory is building a bit. and prices are definitely coming down.
How do you manage your business, though?
Well,
what are you doing differently knowing that grim reality is right there?
We stopped buying new inventory land about 18 months ago, and we started just selling off current inventory, and we cut our inventory by 2/3. And when we do have a buyer now, we don't let them go. We make deals. So you have to give people, they have to leave you feeling like they got a bargain.
How much are you cutting prices?
Oh, not that much, 10%, 15%. That's all.
Well, Dani, I remember hearing about some of your horror stories last week about not necessarily the fact that loans were all drying up, but those loans, those mortgages that were being given out had really onerous conditions attached to them. Explain.
Yeah, first of all, there's several things. First of all, we're seeing about 640 FICO for the last 3 years has been considered decent enough to get a loan. Now we're seeing that hit 720. We're seeing the standard 20% down payment come back, which I think most of us are fine with. But when you add a declining market hit to that in certain zip codes, particularly Texas, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, and California, those 5 states, you add declining markets, you're looking at between 20 and 40% down. Big problem. Now you're getting into a lot more money, requiring 12-month reserves. I'm working on a deal with Countrywide right now, which remarkably has an outstanding program. Started last week, which has a negative margin on a 30-year fixed. Great deal. And they are requiring 12-month reserves on this jumbo. So you have to have a lot more cash in the bank. So, yeah, we are seeing, and also another big thing is a lot more upfront fees. We're seeing 1 to 3 points. Today it was a 3-point cost just to do the loan, a 5-1 arm with Countrywide. So much more money up front in the game for the borrower.
Boy, of 12-month reserves and 40% down.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Big.
It prices a lot of people out.
Joe, are you starting new projects here at all?
Are we? We are in certain markets where there's not a lot of inventory. We're doing great in our $2.5 to $3 million market. There's not a lot of inventory. You know, it's the Hamptons, and there's just not a lot of product. And we have to keep going, so we just do it carefully.
Joe, same question to you. Are you starting new projects at all? Don, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, by the way, I own a home in the Hamptons and bought another one this past summer. I believe the Hamptons are a great buy, but we're going to announce a new project in Manhattan very shortly. We see this as a great opportunity to now buy land because everybody's terrified of buying it. The banks who have taken it back want to sell it, and so we're excited about buying it.
By the way, Don, if you could see Joe's smile, it was from ear to ear when you sold the Hamptons there.
Right.
Dani, thank you very much. Joe, Don, great to see you all.
Next,
Thank you.
we'll be right